Hi, it's Hope and welcome to the video. This is going to be my April wrap-up. So if you do not know how this works, is I go through, first I go through my stats for the month. I go through my stats, I go through my reading goals of the month, and then I go into the actual books that I've read. I did an entire mid-month wrap-up, so those are the first 4 or 5 books. I can't remember the exact number of books that I talked about in that video, so I'll leave that linked in the iCard and in the description. But yeah, let's just get into this because there is not that many books to talk about, but I just want to talk about these. So first, let's do my wrap-up stats, which I will pop it up on the screen here. So if I look over here, it's because I have all the books I read, all the stats, all of that over here. So I read 13 books, which is the least amount of books I've read in a month, but I did read some very chunky books. This month I read like a couple chunky books, so that makes sense. I read 6,108 pages, so like that's like an average amount of page range. I'd say I read about 6,000 to 7,000 pages a month. The average star rating was 4.5 stars. That is because I reread 3 books that were, 2 of them were 5 stars, 1 of them was a 4.5, and then the lowest rated book on this in this month was a 3.5. And a lot of them I read rated 5 stars. I read 2 adult books. I read 4 new adult and 7 young adult, which that just like never happens. Normally it's like with 13 it would be like, oh, 12 young adult and 1 new adult. But again, it's because I reread a new adult series, which will be the first series I talk about. I read 2 contemporaries, I read 1 dystopian, I read 1 erotic, we'll get to that. 6 fantasy, 1 historical, and 2 sci-fi. That is a very, very good range of books. Now on to my monthly goals. I did an entire video in December about reading goals and overall goals for 2021, and there were some monthly goals that I wanted to try to complete. So I'll pop that up here. Was to read 3 or more genres in a month, and I read 6. I think that's the most genres I've read in a single month. I could be wrong, but to read 1 or more LGBTQ+ books, and that I've read 3, but multiple of the other books contained characters that were queer, but 3 of them were like, oh yeah, for sure. You get what I'm saying? To read 1 or more POC author. I read 1 book by 1 POC author. I would have hoped it would have been more, but 1 is at least a start. Right? You cannot say that 1 isn't at least a start. One of my goals was to read 1 Rick Riordan book a month because I am wanting to try to complete all of the Riordan verse. I didn't read any at the 2nd month in a row, and I also don't have one on my May TBR, but I want to finish the Riordan verse before the end of the year, so I guess let's be reading a lot of those later in the year. And to read 2 or more age ranges, I read 3. So now actually going into the books. The first 3 books I'm going to talk about, because they're the 3 books in one series, is From Blood and Ash, A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire, and The Crown of Gilded Bones by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now, I don't know how I'm popping them up here, so I can't really point to which one I'm talking about, but From Blood and Ash, which is the first book in the Blood and Ash series, there's going to be 6 books in the series. We follow Poppy, who is a maiden. She cannot be looked upon, she cannot be touched, she cannot experience pleasure, anything like that. But when her guard dies, a new guard is brought in named Hawk, and it is the story of, well, the first book at least, the first like half of the first book is the story of Poppy and Hawk becoming friends and then becoming more, and that is literally all I can say because everything else I'll say was spoilers. But let's just say that description and the third book, A Crown of Gilded Bones, yeah, like two totally different things. Like, I gave all of these 5 stars. From Blood and Ash and A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire were rereads. I read those back in December. And I needed to do a reread for The Crown of Gilded Bones, and I'm so glad I did because The Crown of Gilded Bones is so dense and it's so like, whew. This is a very smutty series, like new adult for sure, like multiple smut scenes in each book. And I love these characters so much. I love Poppy. I love Hawk. I love a side character named Kieran, who is introduced in the first book. I don't know what I can say. Everything I want to say is spoilers, but like, if you've read this book, if you've read The Crown of Gilded, if you've read The Crown of Gilded Bones, especially the beach scene, the bloodlust scene, and the ending. Talk to me about it. I need somebody to talk about. Oh my gosh, and I'm so sad that we have to wait like till like next year for the next book in this series, because I'm like, I need it yesterday. I need it like yesterday, but like it's coming out next year. But I really hope that the spin-off prequel, A Shadow in the Ember, kind of deals with that need of this series and this world, because this world is so dense, is so magical, and is so like plot twist after plot twist after plot twist. I still don't even understand half the plot twists, so like I'm for sure going to be probably doing a reread of this entire series before A Shadow in the Ember comes out in October, so like expect me to be rereading this. Again, this is one of my favorite series. Next I read Rule of Wolves by Leigh Bardugo, and I cannot explain this book because it is the sequel to King of Scars, which I read earlier in the month. That is one of the books that I talked about in my mid-month wrap-up, and I can't talk about this because it's a sequel to King of Scars, but it's also overall the 7th book in the Grishaverse. So all I can say is I gave this a 4.5 stars. I really, really like this. The ending pretty much set up a third Six of Crows book, and I'm like, I need that now. I especially need it now after watching the TV show and being obsessed. I'm currently doing my 3rd watch through, and the show's been out for not even like a week and a half. Oops. But we're talking about this book, not the show. But like, I really like this. I will say that it almost could have been a little bit more detailed and turned into just a trilogy. You get what I'm saying? Like, I felt like there were some things that were just like, okay, that could have been a little bit, like, that scene could have been a little longer, that could have been a little fleshed out more. But I love these characters, and spoiler for about 20 seconds. I'm saying fuck it, I'm gonna spoil it. But the way, minor spoiler, I guess, the way that we see some of the other characters from Shadow and Bone and Six of Crows in this shocked the living shit out of me. The one made sense. I was like, okay, yeah, we're seeing that character, okay. But then it was like, and then they were like, hey, we're going to this location. I'm like, wait a second, that's where those characters are. Are we gonna get to see those characters? The answer is, fuck yeah. Like, the way that we saw so many of the characters, like other characters from the Grishaverse, I was like, oh my gosh. And that's all I can say. Everything else would be spoilers, but like, I really liked the plot lines. I will say there's one character point of view that I wish would have gotten cut, just because I didn't find that character's point of view that intriguing, but I still enjoyed this, a 4.5, because of how much I love the other point of views and just how much I love these characters and this world. This is one of my favorite book worlds because of just how well written and well detailed and just amazing it is. Next we have Girl Made of Stars by Ashley Herring Blake, and this is a hard-hitting contemporary where we follow twins Mara and Owen. We see Mara's point of view, and this is a story of when Owen sexually assaults Hannah, Mara's best friend. It's kind of the story of who's right, like, of did he actually do it, did he not, as well as Mara dealing with her ex-girlfriend Charlie, and because she still has feelings for Charlie, but they broke up, and it's just really good. I gave this a 4.5 stars. I originally wanted to give it 5 stars, but I just couldn't because there were just a few things that I was like, okay, well, yeah. But the main topic is obviously sexual assault, and it is very heavy, but it is very quick. Because we not only talk about how Owen sexually assaulted Hannah, but we also have, again, Mara dealing with her, like, friendship and relationship with Charlie, as well as Mara dealing with her own trauma that is very, very, very heavy. I'm, like, just trying to not spoil anything, but it is really heavy. It talks so much about the topic of consent and dealing with just your like, just being teens, and, like, I definitely do not regret reading this at all. Like, I'm so glad I read it, and it actually made me kind of realize, like, bring back some trauma in my own head that I've had, and made me literally, I think I had to, like, pause mid-sentence reading this and just be like, oh shit, and had me crying for like an hour because of between the book and then my own brain. Like, it was very intense, and this is almost like a trigger that I didn't realize was a trigger, so now I'm definitely going to have to tread with caution on books that feature the topic of sexual assault, because I didn't realize it would trigger me because it was a certain type of thing. Like, you get what I'm saying? Oh gosh. Yeah. Oh gosh is the only thing I can describe this, but I did really like this, and it is one that I might reread in the future and more analyze it and all of that to go in more in depth, because I originally wanted to do a review of it, but I knew I wasn't in the mental state to do that review, but I still really want to because I still really have thoughts, but that I might do in the future. I might reread it in a few months because it is really good. Next we have We Hunt the Flame by Hafsah Faizal. Probably butchering that name. I should have googled how to pronounce it, but my brain didn't remember until this. But this, I read a physical copy of this through my library. I just had to return it. I'm going to struggle so much to describe it because my brain is like, I'm going a million miles an hour. So essentially we follow a hunter named Zafira who she hunts for her village for food because food isn't a very easy thing to get, essentially. And when she is essentially told to go find this magical thing on this island, she does. And then we have Nasir, who is an assassin who is sent by his father to kill Zafira. But when they're on the island, they meet up with other people, and that doesn't become Nasir's main goal, and that sucks ass. Just, I will have the Goodreads link in the description. Just go read that description, because I went in knowing nothing about this. Like, I didn't even read the description. I just saw it at the library, and I was like, ooh, people say it's good. Picked it off the shelf. I gave it a 4-star. It was really good. I'm reading We Free the Stars in May. Oh my god, I forgot what month I'm currently in. Oh my gosh. But yeah, I did really like it. It is it's enemies to lovers, like that is my favorite genre of all time, like my favorite trope of all time. But I did really like this. I wouldn't say like, oh my god, it's a new favorite. It's 4 stars, but it's not going to be one that I'm constantly thinking about, if you get what I'm saying. Then we have The Once and Future Witches by Alix E. Harrow, and this book I DNF'd at 53%. Now, you may ask, why did I DNF at 53%? Is because I was trying to finish it for the Avengers Reading Challenge, which is a kind of reading challenge based on the Avengers for the year of 2021. There's bingo boards. I'll leave like the information about it in the description because like it's a really fun reading challenge. But I was trying to read it and I made like 20% and I was like, I'm just not enjoying this. And I pushed and I pushed and I pushed and I felt myself about to slip into a reading slump. And I was like, if I finish this, I'm gonna slip in a reading slump. So I DNF'd it. This we follow 3 sisters in 18 something, and like 18 something New Salem, and they are witches, and that's kind of really all I'm processed in it. I just didn't like the characters, the atmosphere was iffy. I DNF'd it, whatever. Now, this next one I don't feel guilty. I don't feel fucking guilty for reading this. But like, let's just say it is the most unlike the other on the list, and that is Diver's Heart by K.A. Knight. If you read my February wrap-up, you know that I read Den of Vipers by K.A. Knight, and loved it. So then I was like, a few days ago I made a list of all of the smutty and reverse harem books that I want to read this year. And I was like, fuck it, let's read it. So I read Diver's Heart. And I gave it 5 stars. Diver's Heart, we follow a diver named Peyton, and essentially the story is she met these divers when she was 17, grew close to them, and started dating one of them, and left them because she started to fall for all of them. Enter 3 years later, she is assigned to a dive, like she's getting paid to go on this dive mission, and the 4 of them are there. So it's her going on this dive with them. It's a very dangerous dive in a unexplored cave, and when you're put in close proximity with people that you have sexual tension, let's just say it gets very sexual. And very kind of, it's almost like a romance adventure horror. But I really like this. I just felt like the need of, I feel like like the Blood and Ash series has really made me just wanting to read really smutty books. So like that's why I needed to read this to just kind of like, okay, be like, hey, here's a smutty book, now go read your normal shit. And I'm still sitting here like, I want to read smutty books. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. I have to tell myself that every day to fucking remember. But is it good? No. But did I give it 5 stars? Yes. It's a thing of like, there are some books that I am very subjective on. If I enjoyed, like I read this in like 24 hours. I read it in 24 hours. I loved it. Characters are okay, plot is okay, the atmosphere, it's the atmosphere of being in these caves, and just all of that is just, it's like, it's good, but it's only good if you really are interested in reverse harem, which is essentially one girl, multiple guys. In this situation, it's one girl, 4 guys. Yeah, let's just move on. And the final book I read is Not Quite Out by Louise Willingham. I filmed an entire review for this right before filming this. So I'll leave that in the iCard and the description once that's released. This review is going to go up a few days after this. But essentially in this we follow William, who's going into his 2nd year of med school. And he's kind of putting relationships on a back burner because he wants to focus on his schoolwork. But when Daniel, a barely recovering drug addict, enters his life, they become friends, and that possibility of a relationship is still weary because number one, Will is not out to his friends as bi, and 2, Daniel's ex-boyfriend roams the campus and is a threat to Daniel's sobriety. Again, I did an entire review for this, so I'm not going to talk much about it, but this I gave 5 stars. I see myself so much in Will, and I just really enjoyed it. It's fairly quick new adult romance. It's a very slow burn book, and it has a lot of trigger warnings, so I will say research the trigger warnings, like trigger warnings / content warnings before you enter the book, because there are quite a few. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's probably really long, but yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye!